So Team Penske finally gets their long-awaited first win of 2021, and Newgarden almost got robbed of the win again. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. So it was a pretty good Honda Indy 200, and Joseph Newgarden brings us back to some sense of normalcy after the last couple of weeks of newer guys winning, with a Team Penske win, though it wasn't exactly without some drama at the end, because Marcus Ericsson, who finished second in another surprising thing, was catching Newgarden quite quickly within the last 5 laps. It had gone from around 6 or something seconds with about 15 to go, down to about 3 seconds with 10 to go. And then by the time they got to the last lap or so, it was only about 0.7 of a second. The final gap ended up being 0.8, but Newgarden almost got caught up in traffic. Well, he caught lap traffic with about 3 to go and had to deal with that for the rest of the race, as Ericsson was catching obviously faster and was using as much push to pass as he could, but somehow Newgarden managed to hold on and win the race. Now, this is interesting for the championship standings because Newgarden retains 4th, but Marcus Ericsson is 5th in the championship right now. He has a win and a 2nd place. That was not what I thought would happen coming into the season. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Marcus Ericsson. He doesn't seem like a top 5 championship driver ahead of guys like Rossi, Rahal. I mean, there's all types of guys. Grosjean, I guess Grosjean's not a full-time guy, so he's kind of hampered by that. He's even ahead of Will Power. So all those guys didn't seem like people Marcus Ericsson would be ahead of after, like, 10 races, but this is the world we live in now, apparently, but it's quite interesting. So let's go ahead and get into a race rundown. Starting on lap 1, we had a crash. Not exactly a crash, but more a couple of guys spinning. So Hinchcliffe, Ryan Hunter-Reay had made contact at turn 1, lap 1. Hinchcliffe looked like he had just kind of tapped the back of Hunter-Reay, and they both ended up spinning. It looked like Rosenqvist spun trying to avoid it. So 3 cars spun. I think they all got off track. But yeah, they managed to. The 3 guys spun, but none of them end up getting any major damage. I think Hunter-Reay had gone into the barrier, though I think they just had to replace the front wing. But RHR and Felix Rosenqvist had both ended up going 2 laps down, but Hinch actually finished on the lead lap. So we obviously got a yellow flag for that. They packed them all back up, and on lap 4, coming into the next turn after that, turn 5, Will Power had gotten squeezed out by Scott Dixon and spun in that corner. Now he was stuck in the middle of the track, and everyone had to try to, like, avoid him. And Ed Jones was not able to avoid him and ended up hitting Will Power. So it was quite the weird incident, because it looked like Power had just kind of gotten squeezed, and then he just spun around and then was stuck in the middle of the track. They both ended up having to retire from the race. Will Power actually had some comments on what happened, and kind of, actually, he had hurt his hand, so I'm going to show that real quick.
I think, yeah, it's not broken, fortunately. I foolishly left my hands on the wheel, you know, when there was all that smoke. Yeah, good lesson there. Yeah, super disappointed to be out that early, you know. I know why Scott squeezed me down so much, man. I had nowhere to go, and I actually slowed up a lot to make sure that I wouldn't hit him, but he squeezed me that tight, it was impossible. Like I was on the curve, and sucks. I should have known he'd be aggressive because he's on reds, I was on black, so he really wanted to get by.
I know the team is trying to repair the car. Can you drive it today?
Yeah, I can go out and try. It's very sore, but I will. If we got no chance to get points, it's probably not worth doing it, aggravating this a bit more, but yeah, just to... man. So, I mean, that's what you get when you choose blacks, right? Like, people are going to attack you pretty hard. If I could have maintained position, you know, I think we would have had a pretty good race, but, yeah, unfortunate.
Thank you, Will.
So the race was restarted, and it was pretty calm from then basically to the end of the race in terms of wrecks. I don't think there was anyone that had any issues in terms of spinning. On lap 12, Bourdais got penalized for a situation in which he had blocked Grosjean going down the straight after the keyhole. He ended up having to give back the position with Grosjean, and O'Ward had passed Grosjean since then, so he also had to let O'Ward pass. And Pato O'Ward had actually, by lap 14, he ended up gaining 10 spots from his starting position up to 10th, and that wasn't the furthest, that wasn't the furthest Pato O'Ward was going to go. He ended up finishing 8th, but I think he was up as high as 5th or 6th, so quite a good day for O'Ward in terms of a recovery drive from a bad qualifying. But near the end, he did get passed by a couple of guys, so obviously he would have liked those spots back, namely Grosjean. He ended up getting passed by Roman and fell from 7th to 8th, but yeah. Going back onto the race, some of the guys who are trying a two-stop strategy where they would come in quite early, probably off of reds, and then pit for another set of reds and pit for blacks for the last stint, they started coming in around lap 18. That strategy ended up not being really prominent, and it didn't end up working out. I think the only guy that I know did it was Jack Harvey, and he ended up just barely finishing on the lead lap in 19th. But yeah, around lap 30, the main guys came in, the leaders, and on lap 32, Herta was one of the guys to pit the lap after. Herta had a very long stop because of a fuel module issue. They weren't able to get the fuel to flow. He had to sit for around 20 seconds before they could get the tank full of fuel and could let him go. But that was quite the pit incident for Herta, and it wouldn't be the last thing that happened to him, because later on he had another issue in pit lane that he got held for a couple of extra seconds. So Herta had a very bad day on pit lane, and really it wasn't his fault either. He probably lost about 20 or so seconds on pit lane to no fault of his own. I mean, he was fighting for second place, and he ended up falling all the way down to 13th. So, kind of weird thinking about what could have been with Herta. Could he have had any type of fight for the win with Ericsson and Newgarden, or would he have gotten passed by Ericsson? Or would he have been fighting with Palou in third? Interesting to think about. But going back on to the actual race itself, there wasn't much action until lap 54, where some of the lead guys pitted. And Graham Rahal, who was originally about 5 seconds behind the lead guys, Newgarden, Rossi, Ericsson, and Dixon, he ended up having quite a fast stop, a 5.7 second pit stop, to end up catching back up with Rossi. And it kind of started this draft pack train thing that would go on till the end of the race that had originally Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Graham Rahal, Herta, and eventually guys like O'Ward, Grosjean, Ferrucci, and even Sato ended up kind of catching them near the end. And that pack got to be 6 or 7 cars, and it was quite interesting because there wasn't a lot of passing. It was just more single file guys trying to catch other people and then going through the S's and losing time because of dirty air. It's a little bit weird. It was kind of anticlimactic for having 5 or 6 guys together. Especially when you had guys that had already been charging up through the field like Pato O'Ward to just kind of get stalled out there. In terms of the championship battle, I'm kind of rooting for O'Ward, so that was kind of frustrating for me watching O'Ward get all the way up through the pack and then just kind of stalling out. But, yeah, so at lap 60, after all the pit stops had been done, the running order was Newgarden, Ericsson, Palou, Dixon, Rossi, Rahal, and O'Ward. And that would be pretty much how it stayed for the rest of the race. But at that point, Newgarden had about a 7 or 8 second lead with 20 to go. But like I had said, that started closing in. With about 10 to go, it was only 6 seconds. And as we got to 3 or 4 to go, it was like 3 seconds. And like I said, he had caught the lap traffic, and Marcus Ericsson was within a second of Newgarden at the white flag. And it was quite the crazy last lap, especially before they got to the S's, because you're always thinking, Ericsson has obviously been charging up through the field, but is he fast enough to catch Newgarden? Because there was still quite a sizable gap. He ended up finishing 8 tenths behind, but it was like 6 or 7 tenths, like with half a lap to go, which is still quite a gap for having one overtaking opportunity left. So after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing for Newgarden. Obviously, there's the defense aspect of it, but he didn't look like he was close enough to make any type of major move. So it ended up being Joseph Newgarden taking the win in the 50th anniversary of Roger Penske's first win in IndyCar. They get another one. So Joseph Newgarden also takes the crown of American with the active American with the most IndyCar wins, taking that from Ryan Hunter-Reay. This is Newgarden's 19th win. And also, an American wins on the 4th of July. So, in terms of American patriotism, it's quite a day for the U.S. So let's go ahead and discuss the finishing order. Obviously, you've got Joseph Newgarden finally breaking through for a much-deserved first win of the year. Marcus Ericsson second. He, like I said earlier in the video, he takes 5th in the championship standings. A really good day for Ericsson. Even if he didn't win, I'm sure he's disappointed that he didn't win. But second place for Marcus is quite a good run. Third, Alex Palou gains even more points of a championship lead. We'll talk about the championship later in the video. But finishing third, and O'Ward finished 8th. So 5 positions ahead of his championship rival. Quite good. Scott Dixon maintaining ground on the championship battle, at least in terms of O'Ward, in 4th. Dixon was heading up that draft pack, so I'm wondering if it was Dixon being slower or if they were all around the same pace and Dixon was just kind of at the head of it. So I wonder if how that would have worked if Dixon wasn't there. Alexander Rossi was 5th. He maintained his position throughout the day. He was not much of a factor in terms of passing people or pit strategy or anything. There really wasn't much pit strategy in this race at all. I mean, I talked about the early pitting 2-stoppers, but that was really it, and only a couple of guys actually ended up doing that. 6th, Graham Rahal. He had been catching that pack with Dixon and Rossi, obviously around lap 50. So, for Rahal, Rahal started 8th. So, pretty good run from Graham Rahal today. Obviously, he didn't have to deal with any type of bad qualifying like he generally does at this point. He had started 8th. So, it's an okay day for Graham Rahal. Moving on to 7th, Roman Grosjean. Grosjean had started 18th, so a really good recovery drive from Roman. Kind of got overshadowed by O'Ward for a while there. Obviously, O'Ward had gained 10 spots in the first bit, but after that, Grosjean had been kind of more methodically gaining positions throughout the race, and he ended up finishing ahead of Pato O'Ward. Next up, Pato O'Ward. Obviously, this is quite a disappointing day for him. Didn't even finish that close to Alex Palou in terms of a championship battle. This will probably be a race that I guess he doesn't look back at super fondly. Obviously, he didn't win or anything, but yeah, hopefully in the next race, O'Ward can do better. Moving on to 9th position, Santino Ferrucci, who has been quite surprising this year for being a pretty small schedule guy. I think he's done 4 races so far, the 500, the 2 Detroit races, and now Mid-Ohio. So quite a good finish for Santino Ferrucci. I'm sure he'll be happy with 9th. I don't think he's finished outside of the top 10 this year. So, I mean, you can look back at it and say, what if for Santino? Because, obviously, I mean, what if he had done more races? It'll be maybe a thing we can look back at next year. I'm still wondering if Santino will actually try to transition towards Xfinity or go back to IndyCar. I'll have to check how he's doing in Xfinity to really get a better gauge of that. Rounding out the top 10, we have Takuma Sato. Similar to his teammate, he had been kind of climbing his way up through the field most of the day. Obviously, Sato's out of the championship battle at this point, but you can take away the positive of climbing his way up from 19th all the way up to 10th. So, it was an okay day for Sato. Obviously, he would have preferred something better than 10th, but it's okay. Let's go ahead and move on to some other drivers I want to talk about. First of all, Colton Herta. Obviously, the pit stops thing were what ruined him. Out of his 2, planned pit stops, he had 2 major errors that cost him time. So, really wasn't a good day to be Colton Herta. But, in terms of actually on track, it looked like he had done quite well. So, obviously, I mean, Colton will look back at this race thinking, what if? I mean, he was within somewhat striking distance of Newgarden. So, really sucks that we weren't able to see Colton do well today. Another guy I want to talk about, Ryan Norman finished 20th in his IndyCar debut, one lap down. It was actually quite a good finish. He beat Dalton Kellett and Jimmy Johnson, like, flat out on pace. So, obviously, those are the two slowest guys in the field. But for his first IndyCar start, quite a good day for Ryan Norman. Speaking of Jimmy Johnson, he did not spin today. So, I mean, I guess that sounds rude, but it's been kind of a trend recently that Jimmy, like, spins at least once a race, but he was able to make it through the entire race today without spinning. So, props to Jimmy Johnson. That's really about all I have for positions in terms of the race. Let's go ahead and look at the championship standings. So, as it goes for championship standings, it's looking quite good right now for Alex Palou. He's 40 points ahead of Pato O'Ward after the last race and 56 points ahead of his teammate Scott Dixon. Newgarden maintains 4th place. He's 69 points back of Palou. 5th, Marcus Ericsson, 104 points back. So really, if you're talking about guys with any real championship shot, it's Palou, O'Ward, Dixon, Newgarden. But it really, again, looks like Palou is most likely going to be champion right now. Simon Pagenaud, 6th, 113 points back. Colton Herta, 7th, 124 points back. I'm still surprised with how good Colton's been performing that he's only 7th. It's really been more bad luck that's cost him. Obviously, he's won a race this year, unlike Simon Pagenaud and some of the other guys around him. But yeah, Rinus VeeKay, 8th, 127 points back. Quite a surprise, obviously. VeeKay's missed a race this year at Road America. So, obviously, his championship hopes are gone, really, after that. But still cool for VeeKay to be 8th. He's only 3 points back of Herta and 14 points back of Pagenaud. So, if he puts on some type of late-season charge, he could theoretically be 6th, which would be quite amazing for missing a race. Graham Rahal is 9th, 128 points back, only 1 point back of VeeKay. So, obviously, he's in striking distance of catching VeeKay, Herta, and, I guess, to some effect, Pagenaud. And Takuma Sato, 10th, 158 points back. A couple of other things. Power is 11th and Rossi's 12th. So, both of those guys still struggling in terms of point standings. I think overall this year, we've had some quite wacky point stuff. I mean, Dixon's 3rd and Newgarden's 4th. You've got Palou and O'Ward, 1 and 2 in the championship. And Rossi, Power, way back there, out of the top 10. So that's quite surprising, but championship standings are still weird, in case you wondered. So that's really all I have for this video. For this race, I'd probably give it an overall rating of about a 7. Really, the only thing it was lacking was a good, like, pit strategy battle. But I think it was a quite good race, 7 or 8. I guess I'll give it an 8. So how about that? But yeah, it was a pretty good race. This is the last IndyCar race for a while. The next IndyCar race, the first week of August at Nashville. So I'll see you guys all then. Until then, I'll have a lot of other stuff coming out. Probably the next thing that'll be coming out is just this week's racing news on Friday. But well, no, I have a diecast review of a Hot Wheels Corvette that I'm going to do for IMSA stuff. So that'll probably be coming out Monday or Tuesday, just depending on when I get it out. But yeah, that's about all I have in terms of this video. Mid-Ohio was good. But yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.